All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're here for the CMAA product demo, Construction Viz for Microsoft 365. I'd like to introduce our presenters today. On the top, you will see Jeff Lydon. He's the president of Lydon Solutions and has over 25 years of experience in construction. In 2009, he co-founded Lydon Solutions, a Microsoft software solutions provider for the construction industry. Their enterprise construction management solution is Construction Viz, which is available for Microsoft 365. And below Jeff, you will see Paul Bedford, and he's also with Lydon Solutions. He is an enterprise architect and has worked with Microsoft technology stack for 20 years, focusing on Microsoft Azure, Office 365, SharePoint, and the Power Platform. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and hand this over to Jeff. And if you have any questions, please write in the chat box and we'll get started right away. And it's all yours, Jeff.
Cool, thank you. Thanks for joining the product demo. We're going to try and knock this thing out in about 50 minutes and leave about 10 minutes for Q&A. So if you could save those to the end, that'd be fantastic. Also, we've got a survey at the very end. If you could take the survey, we have we enter into a drawing where we're going to be giving away a Logitech webcam. Actually, the same one I'm using. I am joined by Paul Bedford, who's enterprise architect. He's going to be jumping in on some of the technical details. It's going to get pretty techy here in a few of the slides. So I want him to kind of explain how that works and how we deploy into Microsoft 365. All right, cool. Let me jump in here. Okay, so a little bit of the agenda when we go through here is who we are, talk a little bit about the company, kind of my background experience and what we've been doing since 2009. We'll talk a little bit about Construction Viz in terms of the functionality that's in there, and then show you some of the apps, just kind of give an overview of the apps. And we're going to go through a couple of them in this demo. We're going to go through the RFI app and we're going to go through the Daily Report app. There's not a ton of time in here. We're going to just crank through those two apps for this demo. And then I want to have Paul kind of talk through how Construction Viz works. So it's a very unique way of deploying a solution into your 365 tenant. And then kind of walk through the access, how you actually access the tool as well, which is pretty neat. And then why Lydon Solutions, just a little bit about kind of our, some of the clients that we've had in the past and why it makes sense to kind of look at us as a kind of a solution for your construction management solution. And then I'll jump into the demo, and at the very end, if you're going to cut out early or the end of the presentation, there's going to be a survey and a raffle at the end. All right, let's jump into it. So a little bit about us. Founded in 2009. We're actually a woman-owned business. That's my wife in the photo. To give you a little bit of a background as to how we got the company going, I actually came out of the construction industry. I've got over 20 years in construction as a project controls manager, project manager, director of project assurance in different industries, from a contractor to a construction management company, an owner in different industries, environmental, manufacturing, healthcare. So I've seen a lot, and in the course of that time frame, I've deployed a lot of different systems over the years. And some of you guys probably remember some of these things, like P3 back in the day, contract manager, Expedition. I was a product manager for Sky Unifier when I was working at Intel. And so I've seen over the years all these different systems that have been deployed, and they were always very expensive. They required like a huge team. I think at one point I had like 30 people on my team when I was deploying Unifier. They were really complex, and then it's really for what a lot of companies need. They might only need like 5% of that application, not the entire stack. So you're really using sometimes like a nuclear warhead when you need a hammer to manage some of these projects. So what we did is, when we started the company up, we looked around and said, okay, what products out there that everybody has? Back in 2009, it was SharePoint. So if you look around, there was like 200 million users of SharePoint out there, and it's far more with Microsoft 365 now. But we said, okay, everyone has that. Let's focus on that platform and kind of configure it to work with construction. So when we started the company, and Paul back in the beginning was with us when we started this thing. We started building custom solutions in SharePoint that we would host, and we build out different forms. We're using InfoPath back in the day, and we still do today. We still do hosting and custom development with SharePoint. But I want to say about 5 years ago, we were like, Microsoft 365 is taking off, and these guys are starting to see it now, right? With Teams and the Power Platform. It's just getting a lot more functionality to it. It's like 10 times more complex than just SharePoint on its own. So what we wanted to do is take all the lessons learned, everything that we kind of build out custom and our hosting, and build a solution that we could pick up and deploy it where we wanted to, or host it. And that's what Construction Viz is. We built this, basically this modular platform, and we're going to get into the details of it, but it's something that we can host in our data center in Azure, or we can deploy it into your 365, your client's 365, SharePoint on premise, just really flexible in that space. So that's kind of what we've been working on for the past 5 years. We're still doing custom dev, and we still offer that up, any kind of stuff with like the Power Platform and SharePoint and hosted solutions. But that's kind of our bread and butter. So that's kind of a little bit of a background as to what we've been focusing on. The other thing is that we are WBE, like I mentioned. We are registered in SAM.gov as well, and our capability statement is actually on our website if you want to check that out. Okay, so what is Construction Viz? So it's enterprise scale construction management solution. What's really unique about the product is we built it as a progressive web app. If you're not familiar with that, it is an interesting way to deploy applications. So in the past, if you wanted to have an application on a phone or a tablet, you would go to like Google Play or the Apple Store, and you download an app for that device. The problem with that is that app is unique to that device. So there's going to be multiple versions of that app. And it's also a limited version of that product. So it's like a kind of a stripped down version. With Construction Viz being a progressive web app, it all runs in the browser. You don't need to go and install anything on the device. So it's going to work across any device with a modern browser. So it doesn't matter what it is, phone, tablet, Apple, Google, doesn't matter. And the other thing about it that's pretty neat is you can go offline without an internet connection, because it's going to cache it all in the browser, and that could be the entire application. So it's it has a lot of benefits, and in fact, Microsoft's moving in this direction as well with the whole Office suite. They're moving toward progressive web apps. It's just easier to manage on the software development side. As I mentioned before, multiple deployment options. So we can still host Construction Viz, and we have that. Some clients are like, they're still kind of working it out internally with their 365 IT team, the tenant administrator, that they're still trying to get approval to go in there. And so just a couple of them, we still do the hosting, and then when they're ready, we're going to pick it up and deploy it into their 365. But what's really neat, deploy it in the year 365, pick the apps you want. You don't have to have all the apps, you just pick what you need, and then we can tailor a solution to you specifically that's either configurable or customizable toward what you need. And then I guess the real big part of this is that your data sits inside 365. If you look at other solutions that might be out there, hosted solutions, your data is sitting outside your firewall. So I know there's been a big push to have, externally hosted solutions because they've got a lot of functionality, get rolling quick and this kind of thing. But if you take a step back, there is potentially a security concern. And then also you're getting to that data is, you don't necessarily own it until at the end of the job. And then they kind of, give you like an archive or a backup of it. And then that's what you get at the end of the day. But with it being in your tenant, in SharePoint lists and libraries, you have access to it 24/7. So you basically can archive in place, which is huge. We're using what's called the Microsoft Identity Platform. What that allows us to do is think of it like single sign-on. So when you come in, you're using your same 365 login. So you're not having to do a different login. So, it sounds, small or insignificant, but just having users remember their user login and their password can be a problem a lot of times. So this eliminates that, right? Because you're just using your same 365 login. Because it's in 365, we can integrate with all the other services. And I'm going to try and touch on some of that stuff in this demo, where we can kind of leverage Power BI. I'll show you that if I got time, I'll pop into that. and Power Automate for your workflows. So we do have a workflow kind of solution inside Construction Viz, but it's pretty lightweight. And our idea is to use Power Automate, and you can hook it up to our forms, which is pretty neat. But other services as well. So if you wanted like a SharePoint page kind of brought up in Construction Viz, we can do that because it's being deployed into SharePoint. It's configurable and customizable. That's unique as well. So it's not just like, some fields that you can kind of tweak on your own. It's like we've customized our tool to clients. So they look at some things and they're like, I like that Gantt chart. I like this dashboard, and I like the form tech that you have. Let's put something together and create some other new solution. And we've done that from the ground up. We've got a lot of experience in that space. So not just configurable, but customizable as well. And then one of the things that's going to be interesting this year, and we've been working on this for about 2 years, Paul, like at least 2 years on this, but we're working on this marketplace. And the idea behind this is you could go into this website, and we've got all the infrastructure set up. We're just trying to hook it up now, where you could pay with a credit card and just buy the apps and deploy them into your 365 on your own. Just cherry pick the ones you want or do a package. On top of that, because we're in that solution, we are leveraging SQL as well as a way to quickly deploy. We can actually disconnect from SharePoint as well later this year if you don't want to use SharePoint. So we're opening it up. SharePoint's our bread and butter, but we're kind of like opening it up where if you don't want to use it, we can move around on that. Okay, some of the Construction Viz apps that we've got, and we're going to just focus on 2 of them right now, which is going to be in the forms area. But you can see there's a lot of different apps here. There's forms. I think we got 30 different forms. But the model, and I'm kind of jumping into costs now, which are how we price this thing, so you get it, is that you pay for only the apps you need. So you're not like paying for this big bloated system that you only use like 10%. And that's a big deal. I remember back in the day, I'm sure companies are different now, but back in the day, you were spending like $1 million for one of these systems, and you use like 5% of it. It was pretty frustrating. So again, pick what you need, only pay for what you need, and it's a per user per month. There's no like additional cost for like if your company grows and gets more projects or the size of the projects. It's just per user per month. And we work with clients on this too. Like if you've only got a few, if you've got some contractors that aren't really entering anything in the system, they're just reading stuff, we work with you on that, and we kind of adjust the pricing, and then we can do an unlimited yearly price as well. The way we built these apps, which is really slick, is we build it with components. So they're like little widgets. If you think about it, a form has some pieces to it, right? If I just take a form app, so it's got to have like a header, it's got to have an area where you can drop off documents, maybe, where you can add links, where you can add workflow. So those little pieces are like little snippets of code. And that's how we build our apps, is that you can turn them on and turn them off. You can swap them. You can customize them. You can create new ones. And that's kind of the whole idea behind it. Is kind of what we do is we've got some standard boilerplate ones, but we can work with you to kind of Frankenstein something together if you need that. And the other thing about it is when we create some of these apps, especially the form apps, we're looking at it 360. So we deploy something. From an app perspective, we're looking at everything. So we're not just looking at, okay, it has a form and you just save it, and it's up to you to create a workflow or you to create a Power BI report, all this kind of stuff. It's all packaged. So it's got the metadata. We've got our own permissions for these apps that sit on top of SharePoint that make it a little easier to manage on top of SharePoint. Dashboards, reports, notifications, all that kind of stuff we thought through. So you're not having to do anything in addition to it. I know there's some products out there for SharePoint that we've used in the past that they do like one thing, and then you got to build everything else around it. This is all packaged up and easy to deploy. Okay, so this is Paul. You ready to rock?
I am.
All right, here you go.
So as Jeff has already mentioned, we do leverage the Microsoft Identity Platform. This is a core component of Microsoft's Microsoft 365 and Azure, and it is their preferred way and the promoted way to create secure connections between your Microsoft 365 tenant and any third-party application. So whether it's through the browser, on a phone, your computer, even through Outlook or Excel or other Microsoft apps, we do have some integrations with those apps as well, particularly in Outlook. So you come into Construction Viz. Construction Viz is hosted in our Azure tenant, and when you when you access the URL for Construction Viz for the very first time, you'll be asked to consent to allow Construction Viz to access your tenant, your Microsoft 365 tenant, and the SharePoint assets that are within your tenant. And that needs a tenant admin to do that. And once that consent has been granted, Construction Viz is allowed to access SharePoint lists and libraries that are contained in your tenant. Now, it does not mean that the app can rampage around your tenant on its own. What it means is that you can spin up multiple SharePoint sites for different projects, assign users to them in SharePoint, so you control permissions through SharePoint, and then also grant those users access into Construction Viz, and you don't need to consent again. The permissions are all being granted, but the application accesses the information in your tenant under the control of the logged in user. So if the logged in user doesn't have access to see something, neither will Construction Viz. And as we've talked about, there are integrations with the Power Platform, Power Automate, and Power BI, as well as Project and the other Microsoft 365 apps like To Do and Planner, etc. And we also integrate can integrate your line of business systems, and that can be done either through APIs, or it can be done through kind of dropping off, for example, dropping off a P6 file, and then we would ingest that into Construction Viz and hydrate the Construction Viz libraries and lists. So again, a user of Construction Viz needs to be a licensed Microsoft 365 user. That can be a user that's internal to your environment, so one of your employees, or or a consultant that you've given a license to, or it can be a guest user that you've invited into a tenant, and so they don't actually, there's no payment for that license, but they ask then a licensed user within Microsoft 365 and can access Construction Viz just like any other user. Again, through the Microsoft Identity Platform, the users will be asked for their Microsoft credentials, the username and password that they would use to access any of the SharePoint or Microsoft 365 resources. And then once they're logged in, they gain access to Construction Viz. We have a portal, so that allows us to aggregate together almost like a PMO, multiple projects that you've got in your SharePoint environment. And then the information for those projects can be rolled up into dashboards and presented to people that project managers that are over more than one project. Again, at this level, users only see the projects that they've been granted access to and the information that they're allowed to see. So everything is permissioned right from the top all the way down. And the Construction Viz can be, you can configure Construction Viz project sites within SharePoint to be one project per site, or you can, if you've got a project, a larger project perhaps with multiple sub-projects that you would like to keep together in a single site, we can do that as well. So we can have a single SharePoint site with multiple construction projects within it. So as we've talked about, Construction Viz is a progressive web app. It runs out of the Line Solutions Azure tenant. There's no code deployed into your environment. There's no scripts, nothing. Everything is run from our cloud, if you like. But all of the data is stored within your tenant. So the lists and libraries that contain the information that Construction Viz is using, they all live within your SharePoint sites, and they stay there. So the data never leaves your environment. As Jeff mentioned, you can archive in place. You can access those lists and libraries yourself from your own, Power BI and Power Automate and Power Apps, if you've got them. So it's quite unique in that your data is your data, and you can do with it what you like. So,
was this chat always here like that? Is there a max file upload constraint? No, you're restricted with SharePoint. You're restricted. I think it's 20 gig now per file, but we kind of throttle it to 2 gig per individual file.
Yeah, there isn't really a limit anymore with Microsoft, but practically speaking, if you're trying to push 2 gigs of data across an internet connection, you're going to be there quite a while. And of course, you'll get dropouts and errors potentially, but there's no practical limit now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so why Lydon Solutions? So again, excuse me, we're going to talk about, we're basically a California WBE, been in place since 2009. We've got a lot of big clients, owners, contractors, construction management companies, a lot of different industries we've been in, really big projects. In fact, what's crazy is the first job we ever got when we started the company, the first one was $3 billion, and we were still trying to figure out SharePoint and how we're going to pull it off. And it's just kept going from there. So we've also done, smaller jobs as well. And we've helped companies that are just trying to get 365 off the ground. So it's not just, Construction Viz all the time. We try and offer up what's the best solution. And if it's not Construction Viz, it isn't. It could be just Power Automate and, a SharePoint site and some lists and libraries. And we're totally cool with that. Whatever makes the most sense is that's kind of the objective of what we try and do. We have won awards with our solutions in the past. And I think what makes us kind of unique is having this combination of construction professionals and IT. And I know that having a couple document control managers on our team has really helped kind of, go to the nth degree in terms of the tracking in here. And you'll probably see as we kind of go through the demo that it is a lot of it's geared toward kind of like, there's a document control component to it that you can see is in there, which is great. And then it's all in the Microsoft stack. So if you're on the Microsoft stack, we're right there with you. And like I said, we can pop out into SQL if we need to. We've got, and it's deployed in 365, and then it's all in Azure with our with the app itself. Our culture is delivering cutting edge solutions. That's all we've been doing since day one. We're always kind of researching. If you follow us at all on like LinkedIn we're always putting stuff up there, and we're always doing research. And that's one of the things about 365 is you got to really spend a lot of time reading and testing and trying things out, because there's just so much that comes out. And I think we pride ourselves in being able to kind of test it and see if it makes sense for construction. And that's kind of our whole angle, right? So that's a little bit about us. Now let's get in and actually look at the product. All right, cool. So watch this. So what happens is when you come in, the first thing you're going to come into is that portal. So you're going to log in with your 365 account. If I click that, it's going to take me to the portal. Now, this portal, the idea behind the portal is, again, as Paul had mentioned, it's a list of all the sites that I have access to. And you wouldn't see all these other companies. You would only see your company and your sites. And if you think about it, it's a central place to come in and get to access all of them. And as Paul was saying, one site, like let's take this demo site, that could be 100 projects, or it could be one project, but it is a specific site in SharePoint, okay? And at this level, if you think about it, this can be your PMO level, where you're kind of managing cross-site or cross-project, because we can pull data up from those sites. If you think about SharePoint right now, there is the ability to do hub sites, and you do Power BI reports and pull data together from different locations. But what makes Construction Viz pretty unique is that we could pull all kinds of data together. We just have to kind of customize what you want, but we could pull data from a lot of different sites, pull that together and do a bunch of reporting. Also, if you want to pull in schedule information, if it's coming from P6 or coming from project, or just from lists or our scheduling app, which we have our own scheduler. And then a map of kind of where the site is, and then your users, right? So we've got that ability to kind of roll all this data up, right? And then if I want to pop into a site, I just hit this button here to visit the site. And I'm going to pop back. I'm going to duplicate this so you can see something here real quick. So let me get in here and I'll show you where I'm going. Okay, so let me just refresh this guy real quick. I want to show you the SharePoint side of it as well as the Construction Viz side. So let me pop back in here. If I hit this link right here, it's going to go to the actual SharePoint site. You guys are going to be like, yeah, that looks familiar. I don't like it, right? Because it's pretty ugly, right? That's a normal SharePoint site, and you're probably familiar with that. Just, and here's your in 365, right? So here's a deployment, okay? And I'm going to get into this a little bit more detail, but I want to show you real quick that, and these are some apps in here. Like if I want to go into RFIs, I would go in the RFI app and I could see it. But if I pop over here real quick and I go to site settings, when we deploy our site contents, when we deploy our apps, what happens is it creates libraries and lists inside the SharePoint site. So these are all inside your tenant, inside SharePoint, and you could see that these are all the document libraries, and here's all the lists. So like if I want to look at RFIs, if I come down here and I go to RFIs in here, we get a ton of apps in here, but let's say RFI, there's 3 forms in here. These forms were created in a SharePoint list, but if I go over to Construction Viz and I went to RFIs, there's actually 3 forms. There's a revision. So these are 3 forms that have just been created inside SharePoint. So I just want to have you guys understand that right behind the scenes, again, is SharePoint. Okay, so a couple things. So if I, the way we set this thing up is that it's responsive to the device. So you can see here, if I shrink this, it hamburgers the menu up. So if I'm on a phone, it's going to be a different, it's going to be responsive to that. But it's not a separate application. It's all the same application. If I'm on a, on a tablet, it might be there, and then on your desktop, it could be wider. A couple of things to kind of note here is the way we set this up, we try to keep it as simple as possible, non-intimidating. So when you come in, you're not like, I don't know where to click, I don't know where to go. Right up here is where you've got a notification center. So the idea behind this is that if I wanted to see all the, let's say all the daily reports I want to have access to, if I click this, it says 2 daily reports. It's going to take me to the 2 daily reports that are in my queue. So if I scrolled over here, my name's on these 2 daily reports, okay? Same thing with these dashboards. So it says 2 daily reports here. If I click it, there's 2 daily reports. If I click it, it's going to take me to those daily reports. So what I'm going to start with, though, let me go into RFIs so you get a rough idea of RFIs, and then we're going to go to daily reports, which is going to have a lot more complexity than a normal RFI. And the reason why I'm doing RFI is RFI. I was thinking about doing a submittal as well, but you kind of get the gist of it. We get a lot of requests for RFIs. RFI, apps, submittal apps, daily reports. Those are kind of one of the biggest needs out in the market. So that's kind of the ones that we want to show here so you get the feel of it. But I'm going to jump into an RFI. You can navigate to the apps over here as well. So this is another navigation center, okay? Okay, so how we set up these RFIs, actually any one of our apps is set up very similar. So you've got these quick views at the top here. So if I want to go and see, okay, what are all the new items? There aren't any new ones. If I want to look at all the open items, and it's all based on the status of the form itself. Okay, so that's kind of what these quick views get you to. Also, I can see the items that are maybe pending my response, that maybe I initiated. And then over here is documents. So one of the things that we found through doing a lot of work in construction is sometimes the attachments to a form, things like images or documents, video, and that, sometimes you look at those separate than the actual form itself, and you want to slice and dice and look at those independently. So what we do is it's all being saved in a SharePoint document library, but we're displaying it here, all the attachments, in a way that you can look at it independent. You could still pop into the forms, but if you wanted to look at, by location, the attached documents, or, who added it, you can do these multi groupings and you can filter these attachments on their own. And you can add columns in here if it's a column you're looking for. And what's neat about these, and I'm going to show you this in a bit, is all the metadata that you put into the form gets captured with the attachments and gets logged in SharePoint. So in that doc library in SharePoint, it's got all the metadata with it. If you're not familiar with metadata, that's all the fields like project, phase, all the data related to that form is getting captured in the metadata for the documents themselves, right? So in coming back here, still in RFIs, I've got 3 RFIs here, right? There's a revision to 1, but there's 3 total. The other thing we set up here, I was just showing you could drag and drop to group these. You can search on all these. You can search on these columns. If you want to create a new form, you just hit that button. It's pretty straightforward. Just hit the button, hit new. And I'm going to go into one that's already built. But if you want to export, create your views here. If you want, you could you can move columns around if you wanted to. You just drag them over and it's going to move them around. And then you could do your filters, that kind of stuff. And then you can export this to Excel. And it just gives you kind of a standard export that you can kind of play around in Excel. We put process flows in here, and we set it up right now where it's going to download locally, but we can have it pop open in the browser. And I'll just show you what we're trying to do here, the idea behind this. So a lot of times, a lot of systems that I've used in the past, what I didn't like is that the process of, what is the process isn't readily available. And it might be in training material, but you got to dig way down in there. So what we did is we wanted to kind of map out what is your process. And this is part of the exercise. When we deploy the system, we try and understand how do you do business and where do you want to go? And we kind of map this stuff out so we can kind of design a solution around that. But as you can see, we kind of, note all the steps in your process. And the purpose behind this is so that when I'm in here, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, where does this thing go? What's the next step in the process? Whether it's in the system or not, I have something to look at. And this just defines it a little bit more. You could pop the training guide here. We also have training videos that we can pop open, but it's all sitting all in one place. You're not having to go to a separate location to go find it, hunt and pack. We're trying to put it all right in front of you. And then you can print these items. So if I want to print that RFI, print selected, and then it's going to and actually these reports right here are coming out of SQL. So if we can punch outside of your 365 and use SQL, we can do all kind of complex reporting in addition to the ones that we have out of the box. So they're really nice reports. You could dump these to different formats, PowerPoint, Excel. You can actually even search these reports. And it'll go through and actually, search the reports. And then we've got some other reports if you want to see like a summary log, which is basically that grid below, but kind of filtered. You have different options to filter it. You can see there's 3 in here. And also outstanding responses. So if you want to see whose ball and court it's in, we've got that built in here as well. And then let's jump into an actual form now. So I'm going to open up a form. So what's interesting about how we set up some of our applications is the ability to copy a form. The other ones have the ability to do revisions on a form. Because it's RFI and RFIs and submittals mainly have revisions. So this is the original RFI that maybe contractor submitted, and I'm gonna walk in to the details here on the revision piece. But you put in your details here, and then if you say like revise and resubmit, and it goes back to the contractor, they can create a revision. You could keep doing it, and you could just keep adding revisions here, and it tracks all that, and it'll make a complete copy. But in an RFI, some of the things that we capture in here, and again, this can be customized and configured to what you want. But typical fields in here, it's got a title, it's got a project, a location, a phase, a category, and you could do different. These are all, you can define these in the settings, by the way. You don't. They're not hard coded or anything, so you can kind of build that out. And then also contractor. So we've got permission controls in here by contractor, and we do permission control groups. So it's depending on how detailed your tracking is, you can kind of set these up in going across contractor if it's like a CM, or it's the contractor only sees these items and owner sees everything. Initiator. Looks like there's a Q&A real quick. Let me see this. Can you set default dashboard at home screen rather than having to select project info? Use default dashboard at the home screen rather than having to select. Yeah, you can come right into a dashboard. Hopefully that answered it. Submittal date, it just captures that automatically. It captures your name, whoever's filling out the form, status, priority. So what we put in here too is this ability to kind of set contract dates in here. So let's say, for example, you have these different contract dates on turnaround time on getting approval. So like maybe high is 10 days, low is 15, medium's 8 or whatever that is. So when you select it, it'll set the target form date, which is the overall due date of that form. Okay. And then we actually track in here all the responders taking action on the form. All that's tracked in here as well. And I'll show you that. Okay, so pick who you're going to send it to. You can put your own tracking number in here, which could be independent of the actual form itself. What are you issuing it for? What are you sending? And then we also have in here final records. So the ability to, once it gets reviewed and approved, you can lock it. So just like SharePoint has records that you can create, which basically PDFs a record, this locks the form. So if you click this, it's going to set a date and then lock the overall form so no more changes could be made. Now, as an admin, I could still change it, but no one else can. So when you fill this out, hit apply. And what you're going to see here is all these are these components. I mentioned this earlier about how we built these forms. So what's neat is, these are kind of, this is a lightweight form. So it doesn't have a lot of components in it. But when I get to the daily, you'll see that you can have like 20 different components in a form, 30 components, and you can turn them on and off. So if you don't want, like the next section here is codes. If you don't want this, you can turn it off. If you want to customize it, we can customize it with you, but it's all basically these pieces, right? So this code section, what we did here is, and we've got this in as standard in all of our apps, is you have the ability to tag any one of our apps, be it a form, a schedule activity, but you can pick a work breakdown structure, a spec, and you set these up in the settings, by the way, the drop-down fields. And even assets. So if you wanted to track, you're out in the field and you're looking at, the RFIs regarding a chiller, 2 or 3 chillers that you're referring to, and they're separate assets. You load these up in the settings. You could select them here, and it's going to tag the assets to this RFI. So down the road, if I want to run a report on that asset 003, I could run a report. It's going to pull up the RFIs. It could pull up images, daily reports, everything around that. So that's what's kind of neat about this code section. It's like, it's the extra metadata that you want to assign to any one of your apps. Question, whether it's cost, impact, delay, remarks, you can add remarks in here, as many as you want, and it locks them in. You can't edit these. You can edit them in SharePoint as an owner, but you can't edit them on the front end. So if you're going back and forth with a contractor, they know you're not kind of tweaking it on them, right? Related drawings. This is really neat. What we can do here is we could take all the drawings. I'm going to bounce around a little bit here for a second. We have a drawing app. And so I'm going to go through this and then I'll pop back to that one component. What we did here is we wanted to centralize drawings in one location. One of the things we found out on jobs is they're all, guys out in the field are usually, guys and gals are using a wrong version of a drawing, right? It's always out of date, and they're emailing it around. They got a PDF and they send it, or there's a hard copy. So the idea here is load up all your drawings in this master drawing list, right? And here's all the current revisions, here's all revisions. So if you load them all up here, one sheet at a time is a row, right? Each drawing is in here. And if I go in here and I open one of these drawings up, you'll see the details, but this is all the metadata that you capture around that drawing. So you come in here, you put the title of the drawing, it's still project information, contractor, because we can permission control a drawing if we needed to, the discipline, area, architect of record, et cetera, and then you can upload the drawing in here, the actual PDF, and you only upload one of them. And then when you have like a red line or you're doing some kind of markup, you can just hit new revision and you can name it anything you want. It doesn't have to be 01. It could be whatever your numbering scheme is. But now the beauty behind this is now I've got one place that these are all the current revisions. They're all in one place. I can download them from here. I can view them from here. I can copy the link and send it to somebody. But when I'm in like that RFI, I open that RFI up in that one component down here. It says related drawings. It's going to pull in every single one of the drawings and you just pick the ones that are related and you hit apply. The reason why we did this, again, so you're not having to attach every single time and it's centralized, right? So that's the nice thing about this component is you can use the drawings and relate that in. You still can attach documents to an RFI. You can drag and drop as many files as you want. The question around the size of the files, we just recommend 2 GB, just from the standpoint that if you don't want to be sitting here for like, you know, a 20 GB file, I imagine would probably take like a day maybe to load. It just depends on your connection. So we just say, you know, less than 2 gig per file, but you drag and drop or do individual ones. And again, what's going to do, it's going to save these files in here, but it's also going to, and it saves it to the SharePoint document library, but it's also in here. You can view them independent of the actual form itself, right? So let me pop in here again. A couple other components, links. So if you have a bunch of links out to different locations, you like if you got a file share or you want to link to some other form, you can just add these links in here. Initial review and final review. So out of the box, we've got an ad hoc workflow. Basically what it means is you can come in here, pick a person's name, what the due date is, and hit apply. And what that does is it puts it in their notification center. It puts it in the dashboards, and then you can actually issue from here an email that's going to shoot out. So you can either do it manually or you can have it automated. You just pick a person's name, hit send email, you know, if you want to put any comments here, and it's going to send an email that has a link to the form and some of the metadata from the form, and then it keeps the whole history. So that's one of the things we always found too, is like, you know, I hate to say it, but some contractors say they never got the email. Well, you could see all the entire history, and you can actually link into the form here as well, right? And then the last piece in this form, in the RFI, and then we're going to tap over the daily real quick, is you can create your own Power Automate workflows, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. We're going to pop over to the settings, and you can link them into our apps. So this is a Power Automate workflow that's going to send a it's going to send an email off to the initiators, and it's all built on Power Automate. You just click the button to trigger it, and you can have it activated or not activated depending on how you want to do it. But that's kind of a tie-in to Power Automate that's in here. The other thing I want to show you too is we've got a lot of different reporting solutions available. So one of the things that we've done in here too is that there's clients that want to, while you could just archive in place, right? It's sitting in your 365. So in theory, all the lists and libraries are in SharePoint, so you have them. But if there is a situation where you want to take the form and all the attachments, you want to send that to somebody independent, you can run a wizard that we have, a form wizard. And what you can do here is you can pick all the attachments of this form that you want to include, you hit next, and you can order these. And the idea behind this is you can, and what it'll do, this wizard, it'll convert, Word docs, Excel docs, it'll convert them to PDF, and you can create a binder off of this. So if I hit next, it's going to name the file name, and then it's going to basically show you what's included in it. And if you hit save, it's going to create a binder of that form and all the attachments, which is nice if you want to just email that out separate. So if I open it up, you'll see that it's got, it's got the PDF here, and it's got all the attachments. So it can convert those to, see if I can hide this thing. I'll just pop over here. You can basically pull that down. You can email it to somebody if you need to do that. Okay, so that's an RFI. And when you, in the grid now, if I open this up, I can see all the revisions for that RFI, and I can open them. I can also look at all the documents independent of this view over here. So I can look at these independent in here. And then the other thing I didn't point out is that over here is where you can find all the ball and cord information. So you can see whose ball and cord it's in, and whether it's been complete or not based on the icons. And you can see I didn't do my job, which is usually the case here on these. I did that one. That's good. All right, cool. But yeah, you could see ball and cord in here. So that's an RFI. I'm going to shoot over a daily report. I got like 6 or 7 minutes. I'm going to pop in here real quick. So as you can see that's how this thing gets built out, how the components are built out. Well, the daily is got the same kind of structure, but it's much more, there's a ton more components that can be turned on and off as needed. So the difference here, some of the differences are, I can look at images independent. So now if you want to look at, have a whole log of all your images and you want to pull those off and put them in a separate report or whatever, they're in here, and they're thumbnailed. You can pop them up by clicking on them. And also any videos that you've included in the dailies, you can get to them quickly in these quick views. And to get into some of the, see if this one's good here. To get into some of, actually, let me go to this one. I've got some information here. Some of the components that are in here, kind of standard stuff. You got like a project, but you can pick multiples in here, because if you're doing a daily, you might be looking at different projects when you're out in the field. It's got your inspection date, the start and end times, again, the final record piece. And I'm going to blow through these just to give you a taste, and then we're going to go to the settings because I have a ton of time, but just to get an idea of what's possible here. So we can track all your personnel on a job site, who is the construction manager, the site super, when they started, all the personnel by trade, how many are on site, tailgates. So if you're tracking safety tailgates, when they started, when they finished, who's in the tailgate. Again, these things are set up in the settings. You can pull them in. Equipment, so all your equipment on the job site and whether it's idle or not, you can track. And you can actually edit the equipment here if you're trying to change the actual name of that piece of equipment. Weather and site conditions, kind of normal stuff here, but we can link into a weather service if that's needed, or a weather station. Lessons learned, items forthcoming, and observations. So you can kind of track these as you're going, as many as you want, as many observations as you want, if it's an issue or not. If you're doing some testing out here, and you could just keep adding them in this grid below, as many as you want. Crews, you can do up to like 15 different crews in here. So pick a project, a location of where they're working at, the crew, the activities that they're working, and then crew notes. You just hit apply, and then you could just keep on hitting add crew to add each one of these crews. Right? Area of work, this is a really neat one. You could set up questionnaires in the settings, and say you're looking at, you want somebody to go out in the field and look at PPE. You could create a whole bunch of questions around PPE and roll it up into a heading called PPE. And then when they go out there and you just say, hey, I just want you to look at that piece for now. All they have to do is click the PPE and hit apply, and then it's going to unhide that component. And then you could click on it. And then these are all the questions you set up that gives the person out in the field the option of saying yes, no, not applicable, or there's an NCR. And you can do the NCR straight through the same form. So we have the ability to embed forms within forms, like action items inside meeting minutes, non-compliance inside of a daily report, or RFI, or any one of these forms, because it's just another component. So you could fill out an NCR, and it's actually going to update the NCR app separately, but it's going to be added here. So you get this relationship between the NCR and the apps themselves, all in, in the daily. These two forms are related now, so you can have that tracking when the NCR was taken. Delays and issues, you can track these, whether it's a delay or issue and what the reason is. Progress, we can actually tie this into our scheduling app. So if you're out in the field and you're trying to update % complete, you can come over here in the field and change the % complete of that activity, and it updates the scheduler directly. We can do this with P6 as well. We don't send it back into P6, we just store it inside SharePoint. There's the code section, same kind of thing you saw in the RFI. Remarks, same as RFI. Drawings, all these are the same. The only other item that's unique is going to be images. So you're out in the field, you want to take an image on a phone, or you want to drag and drop images. As long as you got location turned on, it'll pull in longitude and latitude. You can put in a title and a description. And you could do this with video as well, same kind of thing. And then what we do is we use a media map. And so what this does is it gives you a visual representation of where those images or video were taken. So if I click this, you can see. I think these all are the same longitude and latitude, but you can see where that image was taken. It just gives you a little bit better representation of what's going on in the job. And then you can actually draw on these things. You can draw on these maps. So if you want to take measurements, or you wanted to drop a push pin. So pretty neat. If you need a media map in an RFI for some weird reason, we could pop it in there. So again, component driven. It's got final review, email, and Power Automate. So you could see that it's very similar in terms of just the general structure of these forms, but you can see you can add match different kind of components where they're needed. The other thing that's pretty neat here is there's tons of different formats, and they're all kind of unique. They all have some unique components. What I want to show you that I think is pretty neat about how we set this up is, right now you see this look and feel. It's showing you an owner view. I'm calling it an owner view just because it's got a lot of apps in it. So and what we did here in the settings and how we set this up was we created profiles. So we got an owner profile, which would have all the apps in it. So it doesn't have it has all the apps that I want to show. So it's got them turned on. So you just turn on the apps that you want to show. I call it Lydon Solutions, and then here's the owner view. And then I could put different color to it. I can have different images in here, different logos. And so that's what's turned on right here, right? But we can have a different experience entirely by the contractor. So let's say the contractor is Initech. We can come in here and say, okay, for Initech, that's the company name. There's the project. Here's the color. I've got different logos in here than what the other one is. And I only want to turn on 3 apps. I want to turn on the dashboard, daily report, and RFI. So a little different experience. And the other thing, let's say that I don't want to have all those components I showed you. I can change out the components to only show certain ones. So I don't want this contractor to see everything. So I'm only going to give them on the daily report these components. These other ones I'm going to turn off. Same thing with the RFI. I don't want to have them worrying about all these other codes and all this other stuff. I just want to show them what they need. So what we can do here is it's a separate profile. And if I change myself out, and we have a whole access management piece, but let me show you this real quick. I'm going to add myself into this Initech. Anybody remember Initech from Office Space? I'm going to add myself to that contractor profile, right? All right, now watch this. I'm going to go here and refresh it, and you'll see that it's going to be a completely different setup, and it could be even more themed than what I've got. I just want to show a sample, but this is on top of just permission. So it's a whole different thing to look at, where we can have different profiles depending if you're a contractor, a CM, an owner in the exact same space. So as you can see here, I'm a contractor coming in. I only see these 2 apps, Daily Report and RFI. And if I go to Daily Report, there was a lot of those components that were turned on. If I hit this, I'm only seeing these 5 of them. So I might only want them to update these 5 items. So pretty neat flexibility to be able to kind of make one site. This is one SharePoint site, represent a project, a program, different people coming in with different profiles, etc. So I've got 7 minutes left, and I know and let me show one other thing I want to show you. Let me switch myself out here real quick. I hope somebody remembers tchotchkes and Initech. Somebody's got to remember that. Okay, so let me just show you one other thing. So if you want to use Power BI and Power Automate, and I just want to show you how you set it up and how it's linked into the tool. If I go to settings, Power Automate, you can create your own Power Automate workflows. You create it in Power Automate, grab the URL, paste it in here, and then you can pick the color of the buttons. And that's where I was showing you in the RFI. It's got that Power Automate button in there, whether it displays or not. So that's Power Automate. And then the other thing is going to be the, what else do I want to show you? Oh, dashboards. So you could create your own Power BI dashboards, copy and paste the URL. And if I come up here, this is Power BI. So if I click it, I'm gonna have to log in probably, yeah. But you'll see this is a Power Automate or Power BI report embedded inside Construction Viz. So it's using data inside of SharePoint to pull this forward, right? I want to leave it there because I only got 5 minutes left. So you can start taking questions at this point. Anybody have any questions? So we got some items up here. I think I answered this one, right? And then this chat. Can you show an example of a completed RFI? Oh, in PDF format. Yeah. It's really nice PDF format, by the way. Oops. Actually, I'll do it this way. There's two ways of doing it. So I'll show you two different reports. So I can pick this guy and hit print selected. And then I can also do one like the binder that PDFs all the attachments and it makes the images bigger. Right now, this report's going to give you more thumbnails of all the images. Okay, so there's like 4 pages to a daily if you're using all these components. If I go to the next slide, I think it's the next one. You can see it does what it does with the images. It puts them as a thumbnail, and then everything's hyperlinked. And you can drop this into PDF, PowerPoint, etc. Or you can do these reports as I was showing here this way, where it'll drop it right into a PDF binder, and it'll make a whole page for the like images. So just depends on how you want to come at it. Hopefully that answered the question. For inspector, can any of these forms be populated offline? Yeah. So all of our applications are progressive web app. So the whole idea behind that is you can go offline without an internet connection. Now we just have to put a little bit of coding, because what happens is everyone wants to kind of tweak these slightly. So once we tweak them, get them right, we put a little code in, you go offline. Any one of our forms you can take offline without an internet connection. And you can fill it out. And then once you get an internet connection, you can post it right back up. We have a video on our website if you want to check that out. It's under, if you go into the apps, Construction Viz apps, and then you go down to forms, you scroll down, there's a video. And also on our YouTube channel, I think that video is there. Is the contractor view for customer to share the project? Is the contractor view for customer? It just depends on who is the owner, contractor, CM. You could create different views your own way. Like if you want to have you want to call a contractor, that could be just your third-party contractors. You can have another one that says owner or client, and it has a whole different kind of access. That makes sense? I'm gonna say I answered these things. Can I do that? Answered. Any other questions? The contractor view for customer to share the project. There are different views you can create in here depending on who's coming into the system ultimately. Any other items?
I think that might be it, Jeff.
Okay.
But what we can do is we're going to send out a follow-up email after this presentation. It'll be within the next 24 hours, and we will ask Jeff and Paul to provide any additional information that is in conjunction with this product demo, or any other sources of great information for you, and of course their contact information. So be sure to take the survey when this is over, and we appreciate your time, Jeff and Paul, for being here with us this afternoon. And if you have any last words, you can go ahead and say it now.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for everyone attending. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Hi, guys.
Everyone have a great afternoon, and thank you for attending.
Thanks.